to learn from and to grow, dealing with emotions to create decisions that it show. I need a lesson. I need a lesson. I need a lesson. Lessons learned.
Everyone has a lesson. Whether it's good or bad, you can learn from it. Hey, welcome back to another episode. I got the chance to talk with Chris Tarbell. I went to high school with him, and we both used to be on our town's and high school swim team. Now he's flying airplanes, and he is here to tell us about his experience and the steps he had to take to follow his passion in flying. Hey Chris, thank you so much for being on Lessons Learned.
Hey Tia, thanks for having me.
So tell us about you being, an aircraft pilot, and what were the struggles you had to take while becoming a pilot?
So I'm a general aviation pilot, and I work part-time as a flight instructor, and pretty much what that means is I fly small single-engine airplanes, and I get to teach people how to fly them, which is very rewarding. I've really enjoyed it. You can usually find me in an old Cessna 140, which was built in 1947. That scares a lot of people that it's such an old airplane. It has two seats, goes through the sky at around 105 miles an hour, depending on who's flying it and how much of a hurry they're in. I use it for short trips, teaching people how to fly what we call tail dragger airplanes, which all it means is that the little wheel is on the tail of the airplane rather than the nose, and it makes it a little tougher to steer on the ground. So really people just learn how to do it. It's like driving a standard shift car. It's for bragging rights.
Wow, but you're in the air.
Exactly. Becoming a pilot and jumping through the hoops to eventually become a flight instructor is a struggle for sure. Most of all, it takes a lot of time. The regulations say that you only need 40 hours to get a private pilot's license. That's like the first thing that you get. But what most people forget is that it takes about an hour before the flight to brief and inspect the airplane, and then a little bit time afterwards to debrief, figure out what to do next time. So for like an hour and a half lesson, that can be 3 hours of hanging around the airport.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people don't know about that process either, so that's crazy.
Yeah, and it's life gets in the way. Like when I was doing it, I was in high school, and when I was working towards my instructor's license, it was in college and working. So life gets in the way. But at the end of the day, you just have to remember that this is what you want to do, and it's going to be worth it in the end.
Definitely. So how long did it take you? I know you just said in high school, so out of how many years was that?
So I'm not a very good barometer of how long it takes to get a pilot's license. I started flying in 2008. I was in 8th grade, which was really way too early. If you're any younger than 15, I'm not going to say you're wasting your time, but you're too young. At 16, you're able to solo the airplane. You can get signed off by your instructor to go up by yourself. So if you're any younger than 15, you're going to spend a lot of time kind of waiting to age in. So it took me 4 years to get my private pilot's license. Like I said, you need 40 hours of flying time that's split between dual instruction and solo practice. And then you can go take what we call a check ride, which is just an exam with somebody from the FAA, and they'll give you your license. Most people, it takes about 50 hours to actually finish up, 50 hours of flying. But there's no real reason why you can't get it all done in less than a year. I've seen it done in less than a year.
Nice. So obviously you enjoy it, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So what inspired you to like start flying and everything? Because you said you started at 8th grade, so were you inspired by another person or?
So no one really knows what gave me the flying bug, but once I had it, I really had an incurable case. It could have been that our house in East Longmeadow was right under where the jets into Bradley would make their turn to the final approach into Bradley. So I saw those all day long when I was growing up. And when I was in 2nd grade, a friend of mine moved to town who was interested in World War II era airplanes. So I got into it through him, and it kind of just took off from there. I was building model airplanes, flying remote control planes for a little while, flying flight simulators on the computer before school every day. I was hooked, and I think that's the trick when you want to pursue something, is to saturate yourself in it.
Yeah, definitely.
They say if you want to learn a language, if you can, go to a country or a place where they speak the language, and trial by fire, you kind of have to do it. And it's a similar thing. So what inspired me? I would say that it was just being saturated in it and falling in love with flying and everything about it.
Wow, awesome. What would you tell listeners to inspire them to achieve their goals? I know you kind of already, touched base on that, but is there anything else you want to say?
Yeah. Do you remember Mr. Brownlee?
Yeah, I do.
So Mr. Brownlee was our calculus teacher in high school, and he had a saying that was he'd always write a big scary problem on the board, and he'd look at the problem, he'd look at the class, and he'd say, "How do you eat an elephant? One spoonful at a time." And I think when you're you have a goal, you have ambition, you want to do something, you have to avoid the trap of I'll get around to that, or that'll be nice someday. Just take the first step. So if you wanted to learn how to play the piano, like you and I both play the piano, you don't have to play Beethoven by the end of the first week. Just learn how to play something simple.
Right.
Watch a YouTube video. If you want to learn how to fly, sit on the fence at a local airport for a couple hours one afternoon, or schedule an introductory flight. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Right.
If you want to do something, you're interested in something, take the first step and then go from there.
Yes, that's usually the hardest step too. So just take that step and learn from it.
I couldn't agree more.
So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
That's the classic interview question.
Right.
I think that if there's anything that the pandemic has taught us, is that you really can't predict the future and where you're going to end up. The pandemic's kind of been a blessing in disguise, where I've gotten to pick up a couple of side projects that I wouldn't have ordinarily had time for. I've gotten back into playing the piano,
Nice.
for one. The next major goal for me is I want to get my A&P, which is airframe and power plant mechanics license, and I feel like with that I'd have the trifecta of aviation. I could fly, I could work on airplanes, and the day job is engineering, so I could design, build, and fly.
That'd be awesome.
Not really sure I'd ever feel good about flying something I designed, but I don't know, maybe someday.
Nice. So one last question. What are the lessons you learned while becoming a pilot, and what you want to tell the listeners?
There's a lot about life that you learn from flying and hanging around pilots and aviation people. The biggest thing that I've learned is that you can learn something from everyone. And just by listening, being around different people. Everyone I've met in aviation, I've learned at least one little thing from. The other major thing that I learned was all of the mistakes that people tell you about, or that you read about, and this is in aviation, this is in life. Oh, that'll never happen to me. That that happens to other people. There's no way that I'll get pulled over, or there's no way if you're flying, you're going to fly into bad weather or get caught in a situation you wouldn't want to be in.
Right.
It happens. Somehow it happens, and when it does, you've got to be prepared to just keep a cool head and address it with all of the knowledge that you've built up to that point. Yeah, those would be the two big things.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on this episode.
Thanks for having me, Tia. It was fun.
I would like to thank Chris again for being on this episode. Chris, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. And if you would like to be on another episode, please feel free to contact me.